Okay, this is Julie Pearson, Little Thunder with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at Oklahoma State University. Today is May 31st,
Yes.
2019, and I'm interviewing Darlene Harjo as part of a collaboration with the Chilocco Alumni Group. Darlene, you have worked in a number of areas as an administrative assistant, and you also have experience working in nursing homes and with the homeless
Yes.
at a shelter here, Salvation Army here in Ponca City. You're a former Chilocco student who attended from 1968 to 1971.
Yes, ma'am.
I look forward to learning more about your Chilocco experiences and the way they've impacted your life. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Ponca City, Oklahoma, and I was one of 8 children, and I was raised by my mother and my father, and they're both alumni from Chilocco, and as well as my grandparents are alumni, and so it's a big Chilocco family that I come from.
And Ponca, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What did your mother and father do for a living?
Well, like I said, I come from a very large family. They were both Ponca Indian, and my father, he was going to become, after Chilocco, he was preparing himself to go into a medical field as a doctor. He was a very intelligent man and athletic, and he got a spot on his lung, which turned out to be tuberculosis.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had to spend 3 years flat on his back in a sanatorium, and he wasn't able to pursue his career. But he did mostly, I guess, labor jobs. He worked as a gardener. He planted a lot of the trees from the Chilocco Arch to the Chilocco. And so when I go down that driveway, I see all the trees, beautiful trees that he planted. And then, like I said, he was a great gardener and landscaper, and he worked for the Ponca City schools for a number of years in custodial capacity. But while he had those jobs, he was also a member of our Ponca Tribal Business Committee as a secretarial clerk, and he kept minutes for our Ponca Tribal Business Committee. And I could hear him typing way late at night on a manual typewriter, and he'd be typing up his notes. Like I said, he worked very hard for his family to feed all his children and his wife. And I was just so blessed to have him as a father, very good, sterling example of hard work.
Mm-hmm.
And he lived to be 87, and he was still mobile and ambulatory just before he took his last breath. He asked to be stood up, and he died from colon cancer, but he was just a very dynamic person that made a positive impact not only on me, but my brothers, sisters. I had 5 brothers and sisters that graduated from Oklahoma University, but it was because of my father's encouraging us to put education on the forefront. And as a result, all his kids had degrees. I went to technical school, but I'm proud to be a part of the Pinsino family and Chilocco family. And my mother attended school here, but she didn't graduate. And but she was, I would say, homemaker, home mother. Her name is Harriet, and that means homemaker. And but she was very culturally involved with our tribe, and she came from a large family of Gibbs Waters, and they had 29 military men in the family. And so every year we celebrate the veterans just before Memorial Day. And as far as I can remember, I've been introduced and participating in our local Ponca culture. And I'm proud Ponca Princess when I was 1969, and I was going to school at Chilocco.
While you were here.
Yes, but that's why on the weekends, if there was a dance, I would get to go to the dances, but primarily I spent my time here at Chilocco.
So you boarded here while you were here?
Yes, I was here like I said, I graduated in 71, but in 1969 I was Powwow Princess, and I got to represent Chilocco, carrying the school banner in front of our band. I wasn't a band member, I was in the chorale singing group, but I had the honor of carrying the school banner in the parades, and I really enjoyed that, even though I would get 1 or 2 blocks ahead of the parade. Anyway, but it was I was a cheerleader for 3 years here, and I got to go to all the football games, basketball games, and we didn't win
And
very
traveled
often.
to different cities, right?
Yes.
What were some places you went?
Oh my. Well, Chilocco was not one of the higher classes of schools. I don't even know if it was 1A, 4A's, or what, but we did have a lot of football games, and I was very energetic about it. Sometimes I didn't know what the, I wasn't a close athletic follower. I mean, when the other team would make a touchdown, I'd be jumping around because I didn't know that you're not, about touchdowns and all that. I was just very bouncy kind of person. When I tried out for Chilocco cheerleading, I was so happy I did my cheer bouncing all the way out the door. But anyway, that's the way I was. And but like I said, I've been blessed to be a part of this school and all the memories. When I come back for the reunions, I have a big lump in my throat because I could see us changing classes and I could see all my friends, and it's just bittersweet.
Yes.
I love being here, and when I come back and I see the buildings in disarray, sometimes it affects me.
Yeah.
And but like I said, there's still some of my class members I'm able to connect with during the reunions, and that's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
My brothers and sisters all went to school here too, and like I said, we're pretty much a Chilocco family.
Yes.
I have aunts and uncles that were employed here. They were my uncle Francis Hernandez. He was a member of our cooking. They made the meals for the students.
So he lived on the grounds probably
he
with
did.
his family.
Yes, he did. And his sister, her name was Odelia Hernandez. We call her Aunt Tilly. She was employed for the power plant. We had our Chilocco was really self-sustaining. They had their own post office. They had their own power plant. They had everything. Cattle. They had, I don't know. I was a lifeguard one time because we had our own swimming
You
pool.
had your own swimming pool. Tell me about that because nobody's talked about lifeguarding here, and I'd also like to know a little more about the chorale singing group. But let's
Yes,
start
ma'am.
with the lifeguarding.
Okay, well, when I lived in Ponca City all my life, and one summer, they had life-saving classes. I forget who, or the Red Cross or somebody put them on, and I went and I learned the life-saving. I got certified as a lifeguard, and so when I came back to school here at Chilocco, we did have a swimming pool, and
When was that put in? Do you know?
oh my, it wasn't brand new when I was there, so it was probably. I'd say about at least 10 years old by the time I got here. And so they found out, I didn't tell them, but somebody told them that I had a life-saving certification. So they asked me to be not cheerleader, a lifeguard. And mostly I just sat there and watched them. I didn't really have to save anybody, but I used the life-saving experience from here to be a lifeguard. Actually, I was a lifeguard at Yosemite Valley in California, and they had a lake there, and I got to be a lifeguard out there, thanks to my Chilocco experience. And but like I said, it was a good job. We all enjoyed swimming there. It was during our gym classes that our gym teacher would let us swim every now and then, but instead of playing sports or.
You had
Whatever.
your choice if you wanted to swim.
And we did like to. I never stayed here during the summertime during summer school. I always went home, but I'm sure they utilized that swimming pool during that time. And but like I said, that was a good experience for me. And I was a cheerleader, and they asked me to be work in our bank. We had a bank here, and they asked me to be a teller, and I had to turn it down because I'd rather be a cheerleader. And so
would that have been like student employment? Would you have been compensated for that, or it just would have been?
It's volunteer.
Volunteer, yes, like your other details.
Yes, and I did have detail. Everybody had to keep their room very clean. When I first got there, I lived in home 4, and like I said, I was only 15 or 16, and I knew about housekeeping because my mother taught me a lot. But I was kind of not lazy, but my room was not always. They had colors. They would inspect your room every morning, and it was red was very bad, and then yellow was passing, and green was real good, and ours was always red. So I missed that. I'm not of the activity because if you got a red in your room, which is misty, well then they would restrict you from going to activities, so dances, movies, whatnot, but I spent a lot of my time working off my hours in the dining room.
Well, how about the chorale singing group? Did that travel places too? Tell us about that.
Well, I have a high soprano voice, and my music teacher, her name was Mrs. Warren, and she recognized that I had a high, loud voice, and so she asked me to join the chorale, which is a elite club of the best singers. And so we participated with banquets and a lot of the proms, and they would spotlight us every now and then for a school program. And she also put on a yearly musical, and I was an actress slash singer, and I remember one of the productions I was in was called Gotta Get a Gal, and I had a wig, and I made my dress in home ec, and it was fun. I had a detachable sleeve, and the men were supposed to fight over me, cowboys, and then they were supposed to pull my sleeve off, and then one of my lines was, my dress, my beautiful dress.
You still remember?
You know, it's already detachable, so they didn't really ruin my dress, but it was part of the script. And so, but like I said, I had a lot of the extracurricular activities were not only fun, but educational. Who would have thought I would be on stage? Who would have thought I would be at a prom singing, you know? But like I said, the things I learned here, as well as other places, has really benefited me over the years. You know, it's been almost 50 years for me since I've been here. And but to me, the memories, I dream about Chilocco, and the memories are embedded in my mind, and I will never forget this place. And I hope as years go by that my children will understand that this was a great place, the light on the prairie. And my dad was always talking about how good it was. And his mother was the matron here, and she was for the boys' dorm. And so, like I said, it's ingrained in our family. And
did he grow up on the grounds then a little bit? Did she live on?
No,
she just still lived in
commuted, and they had a farm.
Okay.
Right outside of Ponca. And so he started work in the fields when he was 12 years old. And so that's where I think that ingrained a lot of hard work ethic into his life. Because, like I said, he worked day and night, 24/7. Not only labor, but working for a tribe as a tribal administrator. And but he's a Chilocco Alumni. And my mother, she went to school here, but like I said, I don't believe she graduated. But she remembers fondly her Chilocco memories. I remember having apple fights during, because we have an apple orchard, and during fall, they would give us apples a lot during our meals, and we would just save them and have apple fights after after we were supposed to eat. And I was famous for being a chow hound and making my way up to the front of the line before they opened the doors, and almost got in a fist fight over that. But I was, like I said, I was pretty bold in those days. And we would eat, and then I'd finish eating real quick, put a slice of bread on the person in front of me so that it'd be on their shoulder while they were emptying their tray. But then I would go back to my dorm and change my hair or change my shirt, and then I'd come back and eat again. But yeah, that's it. Like I said, it's just silly things sometimes like that. But there's a lot of good memories and a lot of bad memories too. Some of my classmates died while we were there for different reasons. And we used to go on the railroad tracks to Art City sometimes at night. And I'm telling off on myself, but sometimes we purchase alcohol. We dress our classmates up with the baby powder in their hair so they look old, and put a pipe in their mouth and send them in their liquor store. And then we'd come back. And anyway, but it was fun and memorable. I have really beautiful memories of this place, and I just can't forget. Like I said, I was here 4 years, and you can get a lot of memories during that time, and you remember your classmates. And I had some very, very good classmates. I guess you could say a clique or something, because there was 1,700 students here from all over the United States. I can't even count how many tribes there was, and a lot of them spoke their language very fluently. And I know my language, but it's kind of spotty, because my mother, when she went to a government school, they were punished for speaking their language or singing their traditional songs. And so mostly what I learned was just from being around her and my grandparents. But my dad, he didn't, even though his mother's full-blooded Ponca. He just, because of the stigma of them being disciplined. And they didn't really discipline us here. They disciplined us, but we just had to do work, sweep, mop, go in the dining room, and that's about it. Some of the boys got their hair shaved, and then they'd get automatic $10 10 hours off of their fine, or not fine, or discipline. And then they would actually get, I hate to say this, but they would get handcuffed to their stairwell and live on bread and water for like 2 or 3 days. But they chose to do it. It wasn't forced on them. They said.
Now, are you saying this was during the time you were here?
Yes. But like I said, a lot of the kids, they would run off to the nearest town and try to purchase alcohol. And if they come back drinking, then they get disciplined, if not kicked out.
That was the punishment.
That was one of the punishments. But like I said, all in all, if I weighed the pros and cons, it would have to be mostly pros, because like I said, the academics was not very hard. I was almost a straight-A student, but I think it's from my dad. But now I can write poems. I've won national awards for my poetry, and it's been published. And, but every year we have a literacy fair at our Ponca Powwow, and I always win first.
That's wonderful.
No competition, no. That's my screen name on some of my accounts is Ponca Poet. And so that's me. I'm a poet, and I know it.
That's great. Do you remember, did any of the teachers or administrators stand out in any way?
Several, but Mrs. Warren, the music director, she's one of them that was very influential on me, because she acknowledged my voice, my singing voice, and she encouraged it, and she helped me with the acting. And I was with the upheaval group traveling for a while.
Oh, that's a fantastic achievement. We need to mention that. Do you know approximately what years?
It was after I finished Chilocco. So it was around 1971, 72.
Okay.
But all my brothers and sisters were with people, and they went around the world. I just, when I traveled, it was singing out in California, and so we just went to all the places in California. But my brothers and sisters were in it as a PR people. They would set up the accommodations and stuff like that, and they went around the world, like I said, a few times, and they're lucky. But
Great
I think,
experience.
like I said, Chilocco had a positive influence on our family, and we went on to bigger and better things because of this place. This was our launching pad, and we just, I can't think enough good things about this place. It's just awesome. Um, from my dad, there was a book written about it called, they call it Prairie Light, and my dad couldn't wait for it to be out in print. And I read it; it was pretty good because it was talking about the way it started and stuff like that. And so I didn't know that, and I didn't know we had a cemetery until today. No, and because it was overgrown, and but
So the students were unaware of the cemetery?
no, we didn't.
Yeah.
As far as I know, none of my classmates ever talked about it, and I just found out that there were several. I mean, 69 people that they know of, and they're going to enlarge the fences because there was like over 100. And I didn't know that, but now I do. And with the dedication, it was very moving that we can remember students that passed away that were never able to go home. And I met some people today from Arizona, and when I was here, we had a lot of Navajos and a lot of Eskimos. Like I said, over 1,700 students, and I'm proud to be a member of that, to lead them on in cheers and stuff like that, and
Did you
sing
have
at their
friendships
proms.
with
Yeah,
some of the
I
Navajo
developed friendships.
Inuits?
Yeah, and I'm a very outgoing type of person, and whenever I'm not afraid to go up and ask somebody, "Hey, what's your name? Where you from?" You know, all that stuff, and that way I get to make friends, and you know, sometimes I know them, sometimes I know their family or some friend of theirs, but it's good. You only live once, and you might as well make the best of it while you're here. And sometimes, like I said, I'm blessed. I have 4 boys, 2 daughters, and they gave me 27 grandchildren and 5 great grandchildren. So
Congratulations.
God blessed me to be able to see that. And I would, and not in my wildest dreams, when I was going to school at Chilocco, would I think that I would have 27 grandchildren or 5 great grandchildren. That's just it's great. But like I said, I feel like I'm blessed, and I got to meet a lot of tribes here, and I got to learn some of their language. We say "ba" and "ponca" just to express like what or what do you mean "ba?" But in Navajo it means bread. So they told me that. They said, "Do you know you're saying bread all the time?" No, no, I said, that's not what it means in my, but that's why I said I learn in words and just talking to.
Did you take them to
different-
some of the Ponca dances on weekends? Some of your
Oh,
friends?
yes. I had some of my roommates, when I was going to school freshman year, it was more like a dorm, I mean, not a dorm, a ward. We had like 7 bunk beds in one room. And so there was a lot of different tribes in one room. And so whenever the weekend come, I'd ask my parents if I could bring 1 or 2 home, and then I'd take them to dances with me. And so, yeah, I made a lot of, like I said, friends. My best friend was Comanche, and she's from Lawton, around that area, and she lives there in Newkirk now, and we're still friends after 50 years.
Did
We
she
met-
stay after she graduated, or just made her way back eventually?
She made her way back. She married a man that owned a home here, and so now she has her homestead here, and her children, was they they're all in one neighborhood. So, but like I said, that's my best friend, and I met her. She was 14, and I just turned 15. And so, yeah, we're still friends.
Well, you lived, you mentioned Yosemite Valley and lifeguarding there. Did you live outside of Oklahoma for a while after you left Chilocco?
Well, briefly, when I was in California, that's when I was involved with the Upper People. And the life-saving job was more or less a day job. And because we lived right close by there, Merced or Bear Creek is where I was at. And that's right by Merced, California. Desert, hot, 120 degrees, but that's where I was at. I was so dark when I come back to Oklahoma, my mother didn't recognize me. Yeah, anyway, because it was hot out there. And, but yeah, I lived there, and I lived a lot of places in Kansas, Dodge City, Liberal. I lived some places in Oklahoma, Miami, and Oklahoma City. But like I said, it was just temporary. Ponca City's my home, and I always come back to it.
Right.
So that's where I'm at now. Well, I live in White Eagle, and heart of the Ponca country.
Yes.
And so that's where I live, and I like it. It's nice, and except for the flooding. The river's right in my back door, and I'm scared of snakes. No, but it's all right. Like I said, I feel like I'm closer involved because I live in White Eagle. I can go to more cultural activities.
Right.
And I'm blessed that my children and my grandchildren are taken after me, and they're all in the arena and they all dance, and I'm so happy about that. Yeah.
What's the most surprising place you ran into a Chilocco alum?
Surprising?
Yeah.
Well, I do go to reunions, and let's see. I believe it was in California. I ran into one. There was some. There's several tribes out in California. My sister Charmaine was married to a Pomo Indian, and they're from California. And but I believe I met one around that area, around the Pomo tribe, and they told me that they was at Chilocco, and that was surprising for me.
Right.
But like I said, I have a lot of classmates that were from Alaska, Point Barrow,
Have you been up to visit, or?
Some of them are on my Facebook, and I have a very good friend. Her name was Verla Jackson, but she goes by Verla Wright now, and she was also my roommate at Chilocco, and me and her still communicate fairly often. And then I have another man friend that his name's Kenneth Deputy, and he's Blackfoot Indian, and he's from Montana, and we still communicate. But it's neat having people all over the country that you can still talk to, you know. And so I'm happy. Like I said, my best friend is Comanche, and Poncas are mostly my family, but I have friends that I made here that are from all of the. I'm getting emotional.
Well, is there anything else that we should talk about you haven't mentioned, or anything you'd like people to know about Chilocco that you don't think you've touched on yet?
Well, most of the time when I talk to people about my time here, I always try to emphasize that we were self-sufficient. We had our own dairy. We had a commissary where we kept all of our vegetables that we've grown in our gardens and orchids, and we had cattle. We had horses. One ran off with me and made it around the oval. Anyway.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, that's
a great story.
And the fish pond, my classmates would grab my feet and hands and throw me in about
Needed the fountain.
100 times. Yeah, so
That's a great story.
I know, and But that was one of the things I was used to, was getting thrown in the fish pond. And we had a clinic over here, and there's a bridge that goes over there. And every time the students would get government eyeglasses, they'd throw them in the fish. And I had to spend 2 weeks in the clinic one time because I had an aviary flu.
Because they didn't like the glasses.
They didn't like the glasses.
Yeah.
They're
They're pretty
big black.
not looking,
Yeah.
not nice looking.
Yeah, and when you go across the bridge, you could see hundreds of pairs of glasses. I don't know.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for talking to me.
Oh, I'm so happy to, because like I said, I feel like our history needs to be retained and passed on to whoever, our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and whoever's interested, because it's very, very interesting history. And then I'm proud to be part of it. I'm blessed to be part of it. And every time I look out the window here, I see my old home ec. I never paid no attention. I'd be writing love notes or sleep or something. And as a result, I'm not a good seamstress, and I'm not a very good cook.
But you have other talents.
Yeah.